Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Underdog episode. So, today we got Season 5, Episode 3, Interior Scars. Soft jazz is playing. A huge ballroom is shown. Countless people are standing around, holding glasses of wine and wearing suits and lavish dresses. It cuts to a banner hung on the wall. The words on it state, "Happy 15th to our beloved daughter, Zara," in cursive. The camera pans down to show the beloved daughter. Zara is talking to a woman in a plain red dress, while Zara is wearing a sparkly purple dress, which is complemented nicely by her brown curls that reach down past her shoulders. She has a rose in her hair, and right below that are her eyes, where purple eyeshadow lies around them. "Ah, yes, I heard that your mother was at the recital. I'm glad she enjoyed it." The woman Zara was talking to puts a hand on her shoulder. "Happy birthday, Zara." They smile at each other before the girl walks away, Zara turning back to the crowd. As she stares off, somebody approaches from behind, holding a small brown wooden case latched together with a golden lock. The person, who is a tall, skinny woman, announces herself to Zara, to which Zara turns around. "Oh, Kimberly, I thought I saw you earlier." Kimberly gives off a soft smile, holding the brown case out to Zara. "Happy birthday, here's a little something passed down." Zara raises an eyebrow, accepting the case. "What is it?" Zara says, opening the latch and lifting up the top of the case. "A family heirloom, rumored to be magical." Kim laughs as Zara pulls a short, wooden wand out of the case, inspecting it. "I had it for a few years. My mom was urging me to give it to you, since you are family." Zara smiles, placing the wand back into the case. "Thanks, Kim. Did you get any magical powers when you had it?" Zara giggles as Kim does the same. "Sadly, no. I think it's only a myth." Zara shrugs, still holding the case with both hands. "It's still pretty cool." "Well, I'm glad you like it. Bye, Zara. Happy birthday again, by the way." Kimberly starts to walk away, waving. "Bye." "Thanks." Zara waves at Kimberly as she disappears into the crowd. Zara looks down at the wooden case, flipping it over. The bottom has 2 letters engraved with the wood, K.S. It cuts to Zara standing by a window in a bedroom. It's nighttime out, and the window has a perfect view of the moon and stars that color the sky. Zara is wearing an oversized t-shirt and sweatpants. She smiles and releases a breath before turning around and walking to her bed, getting into it. She pulls the covers over her body, nestling into the bed, before her nightstand shakes slightly, the one with the wooden case on it. The case falls off the nightstand and hits the ground, unlatching and opening, the wand falling out and rolling across the floor. Zara immediately bends up and looks down at the flipped-over case before getting out of bed and bending over to pick it back up. It cuts to a shot on the ground, the wand front and center. Small purple sparkles are levitating on the tip of the wand. Zara bends at the shot and picks up the wand. It cuts to an over-the-shoulder shot where Zara looks down at the sparkly wand, furrowing her eyebrows and looking at it with wonder. She points the tip of the ceiling before the sparkles start to spin around the tip, speeding up gradually. Zara steps backward and tosses the case onto the bed lightly, the wand consuming her full attention. She watches as the sparkles keep spinning, increasing in speed, still, but also now in number. She opens her mouth as she points the wand at a small beanbag in the corner of the room. The beanbag disappears as the sparkles spit away from the wand and at the beanbag. Zara's eyes widen, her mouth dropping further down. She quickly turns to the case in the bed, picking it up and turning it over again, looking at the initials on the bottom. But they've changed. This time, engraved onto the bottom, are the initials Z.S. Zara messily puts the wand back into the case and shuts it, the lights sound rebounding off the walls. She gets down on her knees and slides the case under her bed, looking around the room one last time. It cuts to the box of cloth in the attic. The top is open, and Lindsay is looking in it, her eyes squinting into the box. It cuts to a shot of the inside of the box. A good amount of the cloth has been used up, especially the pink cloth, which was the one she started with the least amount of. It cuts to the downstairs. Dylan is standing in front of the fridge. He's browsing on inside before Lindsay can be heard coming out from the attic and putting the pull-down stairs back into the ceiling. Lindsay comes out into the kitchen and leans on the counter opposite the fridge and looks over to Dylan, who feels Lindsay's gaze. Is Michaela almost home? Lindsay nods. Hey, can I ask you a question? Dylan turns around and shuts the fridge. Yeah, what's up? Lindsay leans off the counter, crossing her arms. Are we ever going to see those crafts? Maybe something made of pink cloth? Dylan opens his mouth to respond, but just keeps walking around the kitchen, acting like he's doing something. Pink? I don't think I made anything pink. Listen, if there's anything you need to tell me, you should probably do it before Michaela gets home. Dylan looks over at Lindsay, who's to his right. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Dylan blinks, still remaining silent. You seen that Underdog person on TV? Has a lot of pink on that suit. What are you trying to say here? Lindsay leans in to whisper. Are you Underdog? You think I could do all that? Lindsay leans back and goes to the fridge, opening it. Dude, you also just walked out of the hospital. Dylan turns around to look at the back of Lindsay. Alright, let's say it is me. What then? Lindsay keeps looking in the fridge, but doesn't grab anything. I would tell you that it's incredibly stupid and that you're going to get the mayor on your ass. Dylan closes his mouth and itches his face. Okay, any positive things you could tell me? Lindsay closes the fridge hard, making Dylan flinch a little. She turns around with a small smile on her face. At least you're capable of protecting yourself. But how the hell is it even possible? There's been vigilantes with weapons, but never someone like you. Dylan stares at Lindsay, biting his lip. Fine, don't explain, but I know that's you, disappearing at night, selling cloth. Dylan sighs, dropping his head and drooping his shoulders. Please don't tell Michaela. That is what I'm meant to be doing, but she won't understand that. I don't even understand. Worst case scenario, she finds out that you're Underdog from you getting brutally injured. Dylan shakes his head fervently, looking back up at Lindsay, his expression challenging. I won't, and I haven't before either. Lindsay squints. Before? This is the first instance anyone has seen you. Dylan takes a deep breath before storming out of the kitchen, Lindsay following him close behind. Dylan, what do you mean before? Dylan stops, turning to face her. You wouldn't understand. No matter how much I explained. Lindsay looks at Dylan, contorting with anger. Well, a little explanation is better than none. Right as Dylan is about to say something, the doorbell rings, echoing through the house. Why is she ringing the doorbell? Must have forgot her keys. Lindsay mutters to herself as she walks away from the living room and towards the front door. It cuts Dylan standing there, waiting for Lindsay to come back, his mouth trembling. The door can be heard opening, but it isn't heard being closed. Quiet mutters arouse from the direction of the door. Dylan, do you know these two? Lindsay shouts. Dylan perks his neck up, heading towards the front door. It cuts to an angle of Dylan's face. His face lights up, his eyes widening. It cuts to Zara standing in the doorframe, Jake standing behind her. Jake smiles and Zara grins even bigger. Dylan steps forward and Zara runs into the house, making Lindsay step closer to the wall. Dylan opens his arms and Zara runs into him, wrapping her own arms around his neck. It cuts to the door again. Jake walking in slowly, putting his hand out for Lindsay. Hey, I'm Jake. Lindsay continues looking at Dylan and Zara, but shakes Jake's hand before it goes limp again. It cuts back to Dylan and Zara. They step away from each other. Yeah, I do know them. Jake points to the door before Lindsay nods and Jake closes the door. Dylan looks past Zara and at Jake, smiling again. Jake, how are your ears? Dylan goes over to hug Jake, but not as intense as the one with Zara. I think that they're healed. It shows Lindsay, who's shaking her head as Zara introduces herself. They healed. Like my scar healed. Dylan points a finger at his smooth cheek that originally had the scar. The scar from Wanderer. Jake lowers his voice before Dylan takes a deep breath and nods vaguely. Lindsay finally breaks in. All right, everyone go to the dining room. I need to talk with all of you. Jake and Zara walk past Dylan. Lindsay stares at Dylan intensely. What is happening right now? Everything will make perfect sense in just a second. Dylan raises a finger when he says second before veering off into the dining room. Jake and Zara stood by each other by the table, whispering. Dylan and Lindsay walk in a frame. Lindsay stands opposite to the two, and Dylan stands in between the two groups. Dylan speaks. Guys, this is Lindsay. Lindsay, this is Jake and Zara. And Lindsay knows I'm Underdog. Zara and Jake nodded while Lindsay is speechless. Wait. Do they know? Dylan nods. So about that, they kind of are a part of it. Lindsay looks over at Jake and Zara. A part of what? Don't tell me you're in that syndicate Michaela was talking about. Dylan shakes his head as Zara and Jake continue lingering. I'm solo, but they are my team. Lindsay bends over onto the table and puts a hand on her face. Oh my god. How do you expect me to keep all this from Michaela? I know it'll be hard, but you can't tell her under any circumstance. Lindsay takes a very deep breath, staying silent as Dylan goes over to Jake and Zara. That also reminds me. She just figured out, but she doesn't know about the coma stuff. Dylan whispers before resuming. Also, her wife, Michaela, has no idea about any of it. Okay, I'll make sure Jake doesn't chirp. Zara smirks as Jake rolls his eyes. Lindsay bends back up, wiping her face one last time. And you guys approve of Dylan being Underdog? Zara and Jake look at each other before nodding in unison. Lindsay sighs. We might as well stay for dinner. My wife is bringing a pizza home. They both nod again before Lindsay sits down at the table. Dylan points Zara and Jake down the hallway where his room's door is, to which they start walking towards. Dylan watches as they walk down the hall before turning to face the distraught Lindsay. I know you're worried about my safety. Lindsay looks up at Dylan, her eyes teary. But trust me, I know what I'm doing. Lindsay gives a half-hearted nod before planting her face back into her palms. It cuts to Zara and Jake in Dylan's bedroom. Jake is sitting on the bed, and Zara is looking around the plainly decorated room, looking at the new Palm City poster that's hung on the wall. Dylan enters the room, and the two look over at him. There's a lot to talk about. Yeah, there is. I woke up and I had a family that I've never even seen before. Me too. But they all knew me like I've been there for years. Zara finally sits on the bed next to Jake. I woke up in a hospital. The nurse told me I had gotten into a car crash. My mom passed away immediately, but my dad, Dreamer, he lived just long enough to say a few words. Both on the bed make a confused face. But that doesn't explain how he was controlling the coma. He wasn't. I was. Jake lets out a chuckle that even surprises himself. What? Even if that did make sense, which it doesn't, how would your brain be able to do it? How would you be able to cross over into the real world? And if you were in control, then why did you have so many bad things happen? Dylan looks at the two blankly, not responding. Zara gets off the bed, stepping towards Dylan. Dylan, say something. It can't be true. Dylan shakes his head, taking a step back. I can't explain, because I don't know. Maybe my mind just wanted a good story. Maybe it was my way of torturing myself for things I've done in the past. Don't do that to yourself. Blame it on anybody but yourself. I can't believe that you would do that. Zara puts a hand on Dylan's cheek as Jake stands up as well, looking confused. Let's just talk about something else while we try and figure this out. Together. Dylan nods and Zara also agrees. How did you two find each other? Well, I saw that you added me on some social media that I've never heard of, which gave me an idea to look for Zara. And it turns out we actually lived awfully close to each other. Only a few blocks down from his house, actually. And we saw you on the news, too. Dylan nods again. Okay. You didn't bother trying to find Alan? Jake and Zara give each other glances before Zara speaks. His profile's on private. Only way to talk to him if he adds you first. I'm sure he's out there. Somewhere. Sorry to bring this up again, but if you were in control, then who the hell's Wanderer? Even weirder, the nurse also mentioned... Even weirder, the nurse also never mentioned a brother. The coma has kind of tainted my memory before. I barely remember my parents or anyone. Zara and Jake frown at Dylan. Dylan takes a deep breath. But Wanderer has to be some kind of symbolism. Everything has to be. There's no way, there can't be no reason he just kept returning. Dylan's words linger for a moment before Jake's face lights up and he sputters something out. Wander was representing you waking up. The fight to continue down the right path. The path of waking up. Dylan and Zara both widened their eyes. I nearly forgot you had a brain in there. Nice work! It makes total sense. Without Wanderer, I probably would have died. As Dylan is about to start talking again, Zara holds up a finger and breaks in. Hold up. Wanderer dropped in, right? You think he's gonna do something? Dylan furrows his brows before shaking his head sturdily. He won't do anything. But I don't think that was the last we've seen of him. God, no, that dude doesn't rest. Everyone smiles at Jake's remark, even Dylan, who's kept a steady, neutral face the whole time. Brosnick also got out. I saw him 1 second by Miranda, and the next he was gone. He's probably already shapeshifted and done something bad. Dude's a coward. He'll do anything if it means his ass is safe. Dylan releases a full laugh this time, covering his mouth at the same time. If you want something else to laugh at, we need to talk about that suit. Dylan glares at Jake as Jake holds back a giggle. I had to throw something together. Don't worry. I'll stitch you something up. Dylan smiles slightly. Lindsay, the one y'all met, she uses cloth a lot. She's a stylist. Jake's face rises a bit. Really? Maybe I could talk to her. Get her to like me a little more. Dylan gives a thumbs up before Jake scrambles out of the bedroom, leaving Zara and Dylan alone. Dylan looks away from the doorframe and at Zara, who's frowning now. Something wrong? Zara flickers her eyes up at Dylan, her frown persisting. I try to use my magic. I can't without my wand, and that's long gone. Dylan straightens up his face, aligning with Zara's face. You could only do magic with your wand? Yeah, and without it, I'm as useless as Mandy. Mandy was not useless. She barely did anything. She gave him the idea to use the 7th power. Zara rolls her eyes, letting out a huff. I doubt she'll find her way back to us. She's smart to disassociate with this crowd. Don't worry. My powers aren't back in full either. I'm sure yours will come back. Dylan grabs a strand of Zara's hair, twirling it, making her blush. There's something really serious going on, though. The mayor, you mean? Dylan nods, still messing with Zara's hair. That, and there's these aliens robbing the mineral uranium? Uranium? Aliens? Dylan nods again, firmer this time. Tall, purple-skinned, freakish-looking aliens. And uranium is used for fuel, so they must be trying to power something up. If the cops didn't hate me, I would tell them to guard anywhere the aliens can find the uranium. So first things first, get the world on our side again? Easier said than done, I guess. All that time I was asleep, there's been a group making a bad name for themselves, and all vigilantes. But you're not a vigilante. We need to show everyone that. To tell them. To them, that's all I am. Maybe we could find somebody from that group. Get them on our side. Dylan shrugged before speaking again. There's only rumors. I haven't seen a glimpse of the group since waking. Then we lure them out. Get Reef out at the same time. Dylan's eyes widen slightly before it cuts back to the dining room. Jake is sitting at the dining table across from Lindsay, who still has her face planted at her hands. So, you're a stylist? Lindsay brings her face out of her hands and looks at Jake with an annoyed expression. Yep, been one for a while now. Lindsay blanks blankly at Jake as he sits there uncomfortably. Nice. I like to design stuff too. I actually... Jake closes his mouth, not finishing his sentence. At least we can both agree that the suit Dylan made sucks badly. A small smile quirks at Lindsay's lip. It's not safe either, but I'm sure he doesn't care about that. Jake squints his eyes. You don't know Dylan like I do. Sure, he might be reckless as shit, but he is a force to be reckoned with, no matter who's it against. Tell me how it started. How did an ordinary boy get superpowers? Jake clicks his tongue, getting more uncomfortable in the chair. I think it'd be better if Dylan told. I wasn't there since the beginning. I still don't get it. You guys are talking like he's been this character forever, but this is the first time anyone has seen him. Jake points a finger at Lindsay. That is Dylan question number 2. Lindsay sighs, planting her face back into her hands. Do you think you can get some plates and set them on the table? Please? Yeah. Jake swallows before getting off the chair and pushing it back in. It cuts back to Dylan's bedroom. Dylan and Zara are lying down together, looking at the ceiling. Jake is right about your suit. It looks like a sad high school project. Dylan rolls his eyes but smiles softly. Whatever. The two lie there silently, the bugs outside chirping quietly. The silence stretches. Both of them close their eyes, relaxing. Can I tell you something? Of course. I've been thinking about who I resurrected. There's a lot of people I could have done. Zara frowns, her eyes still closed. Like Atlas. Despite Dylan's eyes being closed already, they can be seen clenching harder together. I couldn't bring myself to see his body. It would have been horrible. You made the right move. He deserved to rest. And who knows? He could have came back and still be sick or just have a giant hole in his stomach. Hey, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up over it. Sorry, I've just had a little too much alone time. Been thinking about everything over and over again and how I was. Zara turns herself over and props herself up on her elbow, looking over at Dylan, who opens his eyes and looks at Zara. But now you're here and I'm still going to be alone. No one to control me. If we can get somebody from that group, then you won't be. And you might be right about my powers not needing the wand. Plus, I know you're better now. Dylan sighs, getting off the bed and standing up. I'm sure Michaela's almost back with the pizza. Zara gets off the bed too, sharing a look with Dylan. Just don't forget what I said. Dylan turns for the door and exits the room. It cuts back to the dining room, a stack of paper plates laid on the table. Lindsay is still sitting at the table and Jake is leant against the wall opposite to her, picking at his fingernails. Dylan and Zara walk out from the hall and into the kitchen, looking over at the two. Is Michaela almost here? Dylan says, looking over at Lindsay. Yeah, she texted me that she's got the pizza. I also told her about your friends being here. Okay, remember not to tell her. Lindsay lets out a deep sigh, making Dylan frown. It cuts to a different angle of the table, everyone now sitting down. The chair across from Lindsay is open, and an extra chair has been pulled up next to Dylan, where Zara sits. Everybody has a plate in front of them now, and they're all staring blankly at the walls or at each other. The door now can be heard jiggling, which everyone turns around to, and Lindsay stands up and walks to the front door. The camera stays on the table, and Dylan looks at Zara, and then sweeps his eyes over to Jake, who's looking at him. Trust me, she's nice. Jake nods, and Zara smiles at Dylan sweetly. The door opens and closes as shuffling sounds from the door. Some whispering is heard before Lindsay and Michaela walk into view, Michaela holding a large box of pizza in her nurse outfit. Hey. Michaela speed walks to the table, flashing a smile at Dylan as she looks at Zara and Jake, who look back at her. She sets a pizza down and sighs. Hey, I'm Jake, and that's Zara. Okay, I'm Michaela, and I'll be right back. Michaela walks down the hallway to her and Lindsay's bedroom, entering it, and Lindsay follows her back there. The three at the table stare at the pizza box before Dylan raises his left hand and uses his powers to lift open the lid on the box. Dig in. It cuts to the bedroom. Lindsay walks in as Michaela is changing into more comfortable attire. Polka dot pajamas. Hey. Michaela turns over her shoulder, looking at Lindsay. Hello. I see Dylan has his friends over. Like you said. They're just here for dinner. That's fine. Lindsay nods at her lip as Michaela walks towards her. Everything all right? Lindsay sighs, shaking her head. Yeah, I'm just sleepy. How was your day? Uh-huh. Something's bothering you, I can tell. Psst. I'm only a little worried about Dylan. Michaela rolls her eyes, a smirk forming on her lips. Worried about what? I thought there was nothing to be worried about. Nothing in particular, just him. That's all. Michaela puts a hand on Lindsay's cheek. Okay, come on, let's go eat. Lindsay nods and it cuts to an empty pizza box at this bottom stained with grease. The table is clear and nobody is sitting there anymore. It cuts to the front door where Zara and Jake are getting ready to leave. Lindsay and Michaela sitting on the living room couch next to each other. See you guys. Let's try and meet up somewhere else, okay? Bye, Dylan. Be safe. Zara whispers the last part. See you, dude. Jake and Zara exit the house, closing the door behind them. It cuts to an angle behind Dylan, his body in front of the closed door. As he stands there, the TV sounds. Yes, you in the front. I'm sure you've seen the superpowered vigilante before. Do you have any thoughts on them? Dylan turns his head to the right and starts to walk backwards until the TV comes into view. Mary has stood at the podium, the front of the crowd scene. The heading at the bottom stating that it's a press conference. Lindsay, who's still on the couch, side-eyes Dylan, giving him a knowing look. Dylan catches the look before looking back at the TV. Reef starts talking. I have seen them. Our sights are still set on the stragglers from the syndicate, but we have growing concerns centering around this person. Reef points at another person in the crowd. They begin their question. Are you working towards solving the appearances of the mysterious aliens? Reef strokes his chin for a moment, clearing his throat. These sightings you speak of are only rumors, and they will remain rumors until their existence is confirmed. Until then, don't believe everything you see on the internet. It cuts to Underdog sitting on a rooftop, overlooking the ocean, heading against the lit pier in the distance. There's a small radio sitting next to him, crackling with silence. It cuts to a wide shot of the building, the figure of Underdog tiny on the top. He's swinging his feet as the radio continues to keep up with the silence. The radio makes a sound and a voice comes out. Sighting of robber, entering the old factory west of the station, backup requested. Underdog flinches at the voice and closes the antenna on the radio before standing up on the ledge and beginning flight. It gets to a new environment where Underdog lands in, skidding across the sand on the ground. There are scattered trees around where the sand mixes with the grass. The camera turns to show the factory detailed in the radio report. Ruckus can be heard from inside, getting louder as Underdog approaches. Underdog stretches his hands out before he launches himself into the factory with his powers. Inside, the same purple figure from last night is inside, only starting to loot the building. Underdog raises both his arms and his hands glow pink along with the rusty ceiling above the figure. Underdog brings his hands down and the ceiling crumbles down on top of the figure. Just as the figure turns around, the debris crashes down on them, making them stagger slightly. Underdog waits for the figure, guarding himself. The figure shrugs off the debris, their armor not dented at all. They step forward towards Underdog, who's ready for their move. They lift up their left wrist before the gauntlet shoots out a laser, which Underdog flies over, going headfirst at the figure. The figure lowers their wrist, stopping the laser. Before Underdog can hit them, they lower their head. The helmet on their head that has spikes coming off of the top hits Underdog, ripping through the shoulder of his suit. Underdog dodges the rest of his body over the figure, stopping flight right against the wall behind the figure. Underdog places his hand and feet on the wall, sliding down, touching the ground gracefully. He turns to look at the giant rip on his shoulder, using his fingers to open the fabric, seeing that his skin wasn't touched. The figure uses the right gauntlet to lift up some of the barrels to the right of them, creating a bubble around them. Underdog furrows his eyebrows behind his mask and uses his powers to get a hold on the barrels, trying to pull them out of the bubble. Despite the figure starting to walk away, Underdog managed to get the 5 barrels out of the bubble, hitting them against the ground, making a noise that sounds like the barrels are barely full. The figure turns around and furrows their eyes, no eyebrows topping them. It zooms in on the figure's legs, where small flaps open on their back legs before a purple-colored jet shoots out. They jump in the air, tilting their body forward and head towards Underdog before Underdog lifts their hands and forces the figure to fly into the wall to Underdog's left, slamming into the wall and breaking through it. Underdog runs at the hole in the wall before stopping suddenly and stepping backwards. The cops have arrived, and multiple security cars are also there. One of the doors opens on the car, and Mayor Reef steps out, surrounded by countless guards and officers. The officers point their guns at the figure, who stands up and looks at all of them before also turning around and looking through the hole at Underdog.
You cannot stop the colony.
After saying that, the cops crowd around them. The blue beam shoots down and transports them away, making everyone divert their attention to Underdog in the factory. Reef steps ahead of the officers, straightening his tie. You're the one, aren't you, Underdog? The officers point the weapons at Underdog, as Reef steps over the hole in the wall, staring at Underdog still. This is the last chance to surrender to the greater power. Underdog darts his eyes around, before flying away, creating another hole in the roof. Reef's face drops as the debris from the roof does the same, hitting against the ground, scattering around. The cops begin to flood into the building, using their flashlights to look around. As the camera continues to zoom into Reef's face, "Make me a strike force." A person appears next to Reef, holding a clipboard. "Designate them on Underdog."